Hi everyone, welcome to this tutorial where we will explore how to extend JUnit-5 to make our tests more powerful by injecting parameters from a JSON file. This approach is very useful when you have data-driven tests with various configurations or scenarios that would be tedious to hard code for test parameters. When writing unit tests, especially parameterized ones, we often rely on providing test data directly within the code or through simple annotations. But what if you need complex data or a lot of test cases? Hard coding everything can make tests cluttered and harder to maintain. That's where external data files like JSON can help us. JUnit-5 comes with many extensions which allows to inject test parameters from methods, CSV files, etc. But JUnit-5 does not come with an out-of-box extension to inject test parameters from JSON file. Fortunately, JUnit-5 has powerful extensibility features that allows us to create custom extensions to handle this kind of injection. By building a custom JUnit extension, we can automate the process of reading data from JSON files and injecting it as parameters into our test methods. Now let's dive into the code and implement this extension. I have already set up a project with a simple record type which contains a method which we can test. I have also added required JUnit-5 dependencies and a dependency to read JSON through JSON library in this project. Now, I have already created a JSON file in test resource. We will now create a custom annotation for test method to inject data from JSON files into our test methods. First, we will define a JSON source annotation. This annotation will be used along with JUnit's parameterized test annotation. This new JSON source annotation will be responsible for accepting a JSON file to read the data from. It will also accept class type of the test parameter. So let's go ahead and define file and type arguments in JSON source annotation. Now that we have defined the annotation, we need to register this annotation with JUnit framework. This way, JUnit will be aware of this annotation and it will include this annotation in the test execution. For this, we will create a new class JSON file argument provider. This class will be responsible for registering the JSON source annotation with JUnit framework. This class will also be responsible for reading the JSON file and providing the argument to test method as a stream of argument. To achieve this, this class will implement argument provider interface and annotation consumer of type JSON source. Now, let's go ahead and implement the abstract methods. We will store the JSON source annotation object in the class. Let's now implement a generic method using JSON library to read the JSON file. While reading the JSON file, we will also define a resource directory path as constant in the class. Now we will implement the provide arguments method. While implementing the provide arguments methods, let's first add the preconditions to do basic validations. Now that we are done with the preconditions, let's get the list of objects from JSON file by calling our method to read the JSON file. We'll now create a list of arguments from these objects. Now that we have a list of arguments, we just need to return the arguments as stream. Now that we have our annotation and argument provider ready, let's see how to use them in a test method. We'll simply use the JSON source annotation with parameterized test annotation on a given test method. We will provide JSON file name and class type arguments to JSON source annotation. Now that we have provided the required information, let's run our test and verify the result. As expected, our test runs successfully. Now let's do a small change in the JSON file and make sure that test fails with a correct error. As expected, test fails with the correct error. And that's it. We have successfully extended JUnit-5 to inject test data from a JSON file, thus making our test cleaner and more flexible. This approach can save you time and make your data-driven tests more maintainable. This approach can be further extended to support multiple parameters for a given test and to support list of arguments and single arguments for different parameters collectively. If you have found this tutorial helpful, please like, subscribe and leave a comment with your thoughts.